Welcome to today's broadcast of North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of NIC television students, and your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist Tony Stewart.
Recently, many of you citizens heard about an award that was given to all the citizens of our area. In fact, it was received by the city of Coeur d'Alene on behalf of all the citizens. That was the Raoul Wallenberg Civic Award that was issued and presented in New York City. The award was given in celebration and honor of human rights activities and those persons who have been involved in that in Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, and the Pacific Northwest. 3 persons were invited to come to New York to receive that award on behalf of all the citizens, and we're happy to have those 3 gentlemen here today to discuss that honor with all of you. First of all, to my far left is Larry Broadbent, who is the Undersheriff of Kootenai County, and Larry has been very active in human rights for many years. Next to Mr. Broadbent is Mayor Ray Stone, who is the mayor of the city of Coeur d'Alene, and he is the former Dean of Instruction at North Idaho College, and he represented the city at that occasion. And to my immediate left is Bill Wasmuth, who is a Catholic priest at St. Pius X Catholic Church, and he also is president of the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations. Gentlemen, welcome to our program. We're delighted to have you here, and we're excited about discussing this very special occasion that took place recently.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And as always, I'm so happy to have a regular panelist on our program for many years, Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in Coeur d'Alene, and she shall commence the questioning.
Thank you, Tony. I would like to begin my questions with a two-pronged question, really. First of all, for Mayor Stone, what exactly is the Raoul Wallenberg Award? And secondly, for Father Bill Wasmuth, who was Raoul Wallenberg, and can you tell us something about him? So let's begin with Mayor Stone. What was the Raoul Wallenberg Award?
Well, it was an award, a civic award, given by the Raoul Wallenberg Committee, which is composed of some people who are interested in human rights based on the experience of Raoul Wallenberg in Hungary. And I don't want to take away from Bill's part of the question in saving about 100,000 Jews in Hungary at the end of World War II. But at any rate, the city of Coeur d'Alene and the surrounding area received the award, and it represented, I think, probably after some research, they chose our city and our area because of the task force and their work in the area of human rights. And they chose us to receive this award on behalf of all the people in the area who have taken a stand against racial prejudice. And it was a prestigious award, and it was given in a spirit of really awfully fine spirit of goodwill. Took place and received the award. We felt very good about it, but it really is a civic award. I think they have another award, and maybe Tony could mention that later on. So it's for the area's stand against prejudice and dealing in the positive side of human rights.
Father Bill, who was Raoul Wallenberg?
As the mayor said, during World War II, he went from Sweden, his homeland, to Hungary, and there, through all different kinds of means, managed to save 100,000 Hungarian Jewish people from the concentration camps. He did it through issuing of Swedish passports and all different kinds of techniques and maneuvering methods that he had. He was an ingenious person in the ways that he went about it. Before he went to Hungary, he demanded that he have very free rein in whatever he did, and that he would never be questioned by Swedish officials, that he wanted to be able to do just about anything he could do to save people's lives. And he got that permission and got that approval, and evidently had a lot of money backing him too, because he fed a lot of these people for a long period of time. And like I said, was credited with saving about 100,000 Hungarian Jewish people from the concentration camps. And shortly after the war was ended, or as the war was ending, he went for a meeting with some communist people and Russians, and he fell into their hands and disappeared, and hasn't been seriously heard from since. I say seriously heard from in that there are rumors constantly coming out of Russia that he is still alive. People in New York told us, on the committee told us that as recently as 1985 there was somebody who came out of Russia that said that they had seen him in a camp or in a prison somewhere. Officially, the Russian government has said that he died of a heart attack shortly after the end of World War II. But there constantly are enough rumors coming out of Russia to indicate that he survived past that time and indeed might still be alive. So one of the goals of the committee is to keep alive his memory and to keep alive the search for him. And they've succeeded at doing that. Several years ago, Raoul Wallenberg was made an honorary citizen of the United States, an honor not given to too many people in the world. And they constantly are pursuing through political, diplomatic means, making efforts to see if they can find him and if he is indeed still alive to free him from the captors. I got the impression that they felt that very convinced that he was alive, and that if there was a way that could be negotiated with the current Russian government to say that they could save face and still release him and surface him and present him to the West, that they would do so. So there's a lot of hope there in a way.
I think there's a footnote here from what Father Bill is indicating. It's my understanding that the United States has only given 2 honorary citizenships. The other one was Winston Churchill, and Wallenberg is the only other person to receive that.
I think that's right.
I would like to allow you gentlemen to pursue a little bit about what happened when you went to New York. I've had the privilege of seeing the ABC tape, and I found it very, very impressive. And Mayor Stone, I know that you were the official spokesperson for the city and for us, and you were the one that was presented the award. Would you just give our viewers a little insight to who some of the people were that were present, and what some of the comments were?
Well, I think, of course, it was I felt it was a very prestigious ceremony. It was a very dynamic ceremony, and it was in the chambers of the City Council President, Mr. Stein. And I suspect there were probably 100 people present, and some of the committee members were present. Bethune Church had flown up from Washington, D.C. to be present. And there were several spokesmen, or several folks that gave short speeches regarding the award, and this was shortly thereafter the time in which they had had the problem in Queens, and they all alluded to that particular problem and said that they could take guidance from us. I'm not sure that we could deal with their problem because they're not the same at all, but at any rate, that was mentioned. And so as this process went on, Father Bill and of course Larry each had an opportunity they were presented with some citations, and I was also presented with a citation, but then at the same time we got the award, we also received a check for $5,000, which was very important in the City Council. At that time, when I came back, we decided to put that into holdings in the library for material regarding, or to build up the holdings regarding the problems regarding human rights. And so we're going to have a special place in the library called the Raoul Wallenberg section, which we're going to have a plaque there, and Rachel Haspel, the chairman of this particular committee, not the chairman, but the executive secretary of the committee, is going to come back from New York, and she's going to dedicate that this summer when she comes back to take part in your human rights rally. I think everyone has something to add. It was a very exciting time. It was interesting because we had someone from Coeur d'Alene, Kevin Roach, who was representing the Wall Street Journal there, a former student at NIC, and I received letters from people who are now living in New York City that were former residents of Coeur d'Alene just recently, and enjoyed reading about the New York Times. We had good press. There was lots of press coverage, the Jewish press, the Jewish radio, and some other organizations were there. It was just an exciting time, and they treated us really very well. They were very kind to us, very gracious, and we had some extracurricular times in the evening prior to the award, which were very enjoyable times, and we met, I think the Council of Sweden was there, the Assistant Council, I think, yeah. And there were some people there, and Mr. Greenberg, who is I think the chairman of the committee, was involved with the award. But the other people can add things to this.
I have a question for Larry Broadbent, and I know we'll get back into some of the issues themselves and the content. I was impressed with some of the issues about human rights themselves. But Larry, as I indicated at the beginning of the program, as Undersheriff of Kootenai County, and Sheriff Stalder has been so supportive of giving you the opportunity to represent law enforcement, and you just go all over the country giving seminars on the role of law enforcement in supporting and protecting citizens, and you were given a special honor while you were there, and certainly well deserved. I've been so impressed with all the things that you have done. And would you give us a little bit of the story about what happened to you in addition to the citation while you were in New York?
Well, they was made an honorary member of the New York Police Department, their New York or NYPD Viking Association, and was also given an honorary membership in the New York Police Department's Reserve Association as well. So it was a real thrill for me to represent law enforcement from Kootenai County and from Idaho. And I think it speaks well of our profession. It speaks well for our community. And I think it speaks well for our state, too, to have this kind of representation. We had not known that each of us, as a personal note, we're all native Idahoans. I knew I was, but you know, wasn't sure about the other two. But I know they had the education and so on in Idaho, but didn't realize that all of us were born and raised in Idaho. And I think that added a little bit of significance to our state and to New York and to all of us, I think.
Well, all the things you've done working not only with the Sheriff's Department but other law enforcement at the local and state and even the national level, you certainly have become an expert on extremist groups, hate groups, and not only do you give seminars, but you've done an awful lot within the technical aspects of law enforcement. So it must have been a special feeling for you that one of the largest police departments in the country, the New York Police Department, recognized that and that you had some chance to exchange information, ideas.
Yes, we did with one of the detectives that was assigned security for President Counsel Stein, Andrew Stein. And we had an exchange. In fact, he was in the audience and had heard the presentations and was extremely impressed with the involvement of all of us at a grassroots level. And I'm sure to a person living and residing in New York, this could be very overwhelming by their sheer numbers. And I think it's great that we have the grassroots personal contact, daily contact, if you may, with the people that we deal with. It adds to, I think, the working relationships of our task force.
Thank you.
Obviously.
Janelle Burke.
Well, I would like to explore a little bit what the real value of an award like this is. Indeed, the award is a wonderful thing, but what is the residual or real value, if you will, of the award? And let's start with Father Bill, possibly to tell us what you think the real value is of such an award.
Two things that have really impressed me with the award. First of all is that it was a real pat on the back for the community, and we all need that at times. And I think the community could well use this right at this time, that there was that kind of a supportive pat on the back. And kind of tied to that second point is just felt very good that people noticed. Because we know that the eyes of the nation have been on northern Idaho whenever they burn a cross out at the compound, and we know that whenever there's some ruckus going on, that gets national media attention, and that all over the country they see that, and sometimes we get the feeling that that's the only part they see. And it was very, very good for me anyway to see the fact that they notice that there are other people in our area who are doing what we need to do to face up to that opposition. The fact that they noticed and made a big deal out of noticing our community and honoring the community was just great.
So what I hear you saying is that it's important for people to be educated and to understand what the real issues are and the importance of taking a stand about a particular issue of human rights.
Very much so, that it's important to take a stand, and that it's important that we recognize that the issue is bigger than just us. It's bigger than just northern Idaho. It's bigger than just Kootenai County. That the issue of racism and prejudice is an issue being dealt with across our land, whether that's Forsyth County in the last week or two, or whether that's Howard Beach in Queens, or whether that's Chicago a few months ago. The question is, it has to do with our whole country, and we in northern Idaho have our own little portion of that problem, but we're a part of something larger in this case. And being there in New York and seeing the people look to us as an example and talk about what we were doing and relate it to what they were doing, did that intertype for me very well, that we aren't out here all alone in this thing. We're a part of something that's a lot bigger. And that we were looked to as taking something of a lead in how to resist that. That felt really good, that they recognized that.
Mayor Stone, what would you say some of the values were? I know there was a lot of very positive press articles that were written about Coeur d'Alene.
The press obviously treated us well, but more than that, I agree with Bill completely, but I think too that it gave our citizens a sense of pride, both outwardly and inwardly. And I had many phone calls and letters and cards saying, congratulating us, but it's really the people they were congratulating, not me or not Bill or not Larry or not the Human Rights Commission in itself, but more than that, I think it probably took some of those people who might have been on the fence to a certain extent about taking stands. I think it made them feel more positive. I had people that I know that in previous years and all my time in Coeur d'Alene, which has been since 1951, who've had some negative feelings about minority groups, and they have come forward and said, hey, this is great and we're going to be taking our stand now too. I think it gave an impetus to that sort of thing. I think it's a very positive thing, and I think it's a step in the right direction. And I think younger people, I have a teacher friend, a young teacher who teaches at Canfield, and he's had lots of discussion in his social science class, and they discussed this, and he told me some of the reaction those kids had about that. And that's great. But to be involved, to have the community receive this kind of award, it's just a good thing. And as I go around town now and see people, or as I see them on the street, they're walking up and saying, isn't that great? And, we're proud of you. But I said, no, you're proud of yourself, not of me, and of the situation. So I think it's going to give an added impetus. Because we do have some people that are on the fence. They don't know how they should feel, or maybe they don't know what to say or what to do in some instances. And I think they're going to be more willing to be supportive of the task force, and that is another value of the award.
From a law enforcement perspective, how did you feel, and what do you feel a real value is? Sometimes we think to keep order is your job and not mine, but maybe you have some thoughts along that line as to how an award like this can help us to feel that all of us are involved in keeping order.
It is, like Mayor Stone, I've been receiving calls from, say, not all over the nation, but we've heard comments from Colorado and Arizona and New Mexico and Washington and Oregon and California and a number of the western states, and as far back as Florida, Washington, D.C., of all the positive things that have been done. Certainly a lot of times the community or people would look to law enforcement to resolve some of them problems, and unfortunately we can only enter into more or less the criminal aspects of violations of the law, and thank goodness we do have some of those laws. The malicious harassment bill was certainly one of the gigantic steps that Idaho has made in very recent times in human relations and human rights, and it shouldn't have stopped there, and it's not going to stop there, and we'll continue to grow with other acts we hope that will be put in place. The more recent one will be the Terrorism Prevention Act that's being proposed now, and that again is another step that will give the law enforcement profession some of the tools and the ammunition basically that we need to counter some of the activities criminally. But it is a community problem at best, and that's why I'm only one small voice in a sense to in our task force on human relations, and it's really wonderful to have so many people from diverse backgrounds involved at the grassroots level, and it's just marvelous.
For the benefit of our viewers, would you please tell us again the name of the proposed legislation? And I believe it's before the legislature. This session is being proposed by the governor, is that correct?
Yes. I believe that they call the act is the Terrorism Prevention Act, I believe is now the act that's being proposed. And I see that basically in the same guidelines that we've had with our malicious harassment bill. This will give us again another statute to look at in preventing activities of illegal paramilitary activities when it's involved with race and religious harassment.
I know that there's another set of bills that are before the legislature. We're taping this show in January, and it'll air in February, so some things may have happened. We don't have time to get into that, but there's some civil legislation. There's some legislation concerning the Human Rights Commission, so there's a real package. I said to a reporter earlier today that this may go down in history if things are successful as the Human Rights session of the Idaho legislature. But I would like to do two things, I guess. The first thing I'd like to invite you three to react to is I was very impressed with everything you said and what others have been saying, but there's also a sobering point that's been brought out that I believe the mayor's talked about this, and Father Bill, and certainly the Coeur d'Alene Press and editorial. We have received this award because of a lot of things that have happened. But coming with that award is a great responsibility. And some of those comments have been, will we live up to the award? And so what are we going to do from here? What kind of responsibility does this even add to us? Mayor Stone, we'll start with you.
Well, I think from the city's viewpoint, and I would suspect that Dana Wetzel is, of course, the city administrator and is a part of the Human Rights Task Force. We have talked about, Dan and I have talked about what we can do. And from the city's viewpoint, we want to make it possible for the Human Rights Committee to function smoothly without hindrance from us. We want to make a community, or help to educate the community to the task ahead. It's just a beginning. You know, you well know that prejudice leaves us very slowly. It's been 30-some years even getting to this point in this particular community. And so what we want to do is make every resource available at the city level, and I'm sure Frank Henderson feels the same way at the county level, to make people be able to function without fear of their life, or to function freely and to have the right to express their viewpoints, to have those rallies that are necessary, and to let people speak up about human decency. We want to make an atmosphere, or help create an atmosphere that this can take place. If it doesn't take place, then we're not doing it. If we don't create that atmosphere, we're not doing our job as city officials.
Father Bill?
As far as the task force is concerned, to live up to that award means doing a lot more of the same kind of thing that we've been doing, I think, and that's what we're aiming at. Awareness level raising is constantly there to do positive kinds of things to promote the rights and dignities of persons, as the mayor said, so that we get to a community where anyone can live without intimidation, without fear, without any kind of threat. To support any victims of harassment, to pursue some new kinds of things too, like we are at the moment supporting very much the coalition of 5 northwestern states to help those civil rights, human rights groups, whether they're governor level commissions or whether they're grassroots task forces like our own, but to form a coalition of all of those groups in the 5 northwestern states so that we can be of support and that we can interact and that we can unite if we need to in the face of threat, or where we can unite to really pursue the goal more thoroughly. We're going to be, as a task force, continuing to pursue our challenge, our goal in relation to the Coeur d'Alene Indian tribe, Indian nation. A lot more of the same kind of thing is what we're about.
Mayor Stone, I don't want this program to end, and it's getting close to doing that. Without the citizens and the viewers hearing from the proclamation itself, would you mind, you have a copy there, taking and reading something from
Sure.
it?
Be happy to. I think that the second paragraph is very good. It says, whereas the Kootenai County's Task Force on Human Relations has helped to lead the community to affirm its dedication to equality and to stand against prejudice and hatred in spite of acts of violence which have been perpetuated against the city and its leaders. And then it goes on, it talks about the Sheriff's Department and the citizens of the city of Coeur d'Alene. But now, I think this is the key one here. It says, the moral stand taken by the city of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, is reflective of the courage and the humanitarianism engendered by the work of the Swedish hero, Raoul Wallenberg, when he acted in an extraordinary way, and extraordinary bravery and compassion to save the lives of those 100,000 Jewish citizens. And then down, whereas both Raoul Wallenberg and the city of Coeur d'Alene, and I think this has to be taken in a very broad sense, the city of Coeur d'Alene means the whole area, have demonstrated that love for our fellow man, without regard for racial or religious differences, and the acknowledgement that we are all children of God, are stronger than the evil which is inherent in either hatred or prejudice. I think that's really a key.
Under Sheriff Broadbent, I have heard your speech too in New York and saw it on tape. Would you share with us some of the thoughts from that with our viewers? I know that you made a real connection between what has happened in New York and in the world and what the future would hold. And I really appreciate if you would just share how you feel about where we should go.
Maybe a little difficult to do, but I think it started just the night before the awards. We all had prepared remarks, very short remarks to make at the presentation, and I gave a copy to Father Bill to let him read it over what I was going to say. He felt that I was very poetic, but he says it's a very good, this is very interesting and very good prepared remarks. And I wanted to share with him, though, that those aren't really official remarks in the sense that for the title or as a government official of such on here, but these were remarks of the heart, not necessarily. And so I used that as my opening to the presentations. And after not soul searching, but those are the honest things that I felt. And I can't remember all the details of it now, but I just wanted to share those feelings, my feelings about how I feel about Coeur d'Alene, about the task force, about equality, and about justice, not only here in Coeur d'Alene and not only here in Idaho, but in the Inland Empire and indeed throughout the United States. And I think that all of us must remain committed to combat racism and bigotry, and that's the things that's kind of the message we did.
I know, I'm sorry we're out of time. I just want to say...
I have to add to that just a bit. His official remarks are great, but this was Larry Broadbent at his best. And I tease him about them being poetic, but they were really heartfelt, and they were as good as his heart is big, and it was just great.
On behalf of Janelle and our whole staff, I want to thank all three of you for going to New York and for being with us today in this very special occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our program and our discussion of the Raoul Wallenberg Civic Award that was given to the people of the Coeur d'Alene area. I would like to invite you to be with us again next week at this same time when we will be discussing what we believe to be an important topic. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at the same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by an NIC student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.